All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, certainly exciting day, a great day for our program. We certainly feel like, as do all head and assistant coaches across the country, feel like their program got better, improved today, and we're certainly in that case as well. So what I'd like to do before I start talking about this class is just recognize our support staff, our assistant coaches, and for the job they did. To say this is a 12-month process, I think, is really an understatement. In the last couple of weeks, we've been already recruiting. I say the last couple of weeks, we've been actively recruiting some high school juniors. So it's a process that really never ends, and they certainly do a great job in all aspects of this process. The identifying these young men and certainly establishing great, sincere relationships with them as well. I'd also like to recognize the faculty, professors, and staff of the University of Houston. And I think Dr. Couture has done a fantastic job in her time here, while our student body is over 30,000 strong, of making it feel like such a family atmosphere on campus. And when young men and their families come and visit us officially for 48 hours over the course of a weekend, certainly the people that know me know how important family is to me. The way we run our program, the word family is right at the top of our list of priorities, and it's an identity I think that we have nationally. And when we have recruiting weekends, we have 2 academic meetings, one on Friday and one early Saturday morning. And we always have anywhere from 12 to 15 or 16 professors volunteer their time, come over, spend time with our recruited student athletes, their families, answer questions, talk about specific majors, and just them coming over here, volunteering their time means so much, again, not only to our program, but to these young men and their families that are trying to make these really impactful lifelong decisions. So again, I want to thank our University of Houston faculty, staff, professors, again, for their sincere efforts as well, and the passion they have for certainly our program, but definitely the University of Houston. Again, coming full circle, really excited about this class. Maybe a little bit different than in years past, for a couple of reasons. When you look at us today, we signed 24 student athletes to national letters of intent. 22 of the 24 are from the state of Texas, and 13 of those 22, I'm going to say they're from the greater Houston area. They're where they live is basically within an hour of Houston. So it was easy. Certainly a big advantage we have at the University of Houston is we're able to get in our vehicles, and not only for us to get in our cars and drive around to see young men and their families and get to their high schools, but over the course of the summer when we have camps, or during the season when we're playing games, or even having practice during the course of the week, I think it's an advantage for us where, because of where we're located, student athletes can get in their car, have a family member or coach drive them over here to see our campus unofficially. One thing we've talked about for a couple of years now, and specific to our transition to the American Athletic Conference, was the need to, while we're not going to ever neglect speed and still recruit guys that can run fast, looking at the component of size, and that's something we've continued to address, and I think we've done that again in this year's class. When you look at the 24 young men we've signed, 22 of the 24, their height starts with the number 6. 2 of them, their height starts with the number 5. So 22 of the 24 young men are 6 feet tall or taller, and only 2 are 5'11" or shorter, 2 of our defensive backs. So at the receiver position, we've signed 5 wideouts, and they go 6'3", 6'3", 6'3", 6'3", and 6'1". And again, as you come to learn and know more about these young men, certainly they're not lacking speed either. So again, you know, I stood up here a year ago and talked candidly about the fact that we didn't think we were done with last year's recruiting class. And you know, last year, after National Signing Day, really months after National Signing Day, we added a William Jackson, we added Markeith Ambles, we added Marcus Dillard, and we added transfer Lee Hightower. So where I stand today, we may have one or two more spots available that could join this class. And again, whether that happens in a month or 3 or 4 months, I'm certainly not sure. I don't anticipate it being the numbers that it was last year at this time. The other thing you notice about this class, of the 24 young men in this class, Carter Wall is the only junior college transfer, and he's an offensive lineman from Navarro. So the other 23 are all out of high school. One thing that I think made this year a little bit unique, which I think people maybe outside of college football may not be as aware of, was the change in recruiting rules that went into effect this past fall, which affected what are called contact and dead periods in December and January. So basically, for years, you would have 3 weeks in December of a contact period, meaning you could, again, basically go out and recruit, go out to high schools, go out and see young men and their families at their homes. 3 weeks in December and 3 weeks in January. And they eliminated 1 week in December this year, and they eliminated 1 week in January as well. So you had the first 2 weeks of December, and you had the last 2 weeks in January. And you know, that was a great rule, certainly for coaches and their families. Gave them more time off the road, making those weeks what are called dead periods, where you can't be on the road to spend with your families, and it certainly affected the recruited student athletes as well, so that over the holidays and into January they weren't bombarded as much by recruiters. So again, excited about this class, looking forward to them getting here at the end of May and starting summer school Tuesday, June the 3rd. Really excited about the depth that this class is going to provide to our program. I think a lot of people outside of our program were not aware you're allowed to have 85 student athletes on full scholarship. This past season we had 75 student athletes on full scholarship, so we were actually 10 under the allotment that you're allowed to have, which might have been a little bit of bad news during the season in terms of some depth, but what it did do is it allowed us to sign a full class moving forward. So we were able to make up those 10 scholarships in this class, and I anticipate us being at a full 85 at the start of next season. So that was a mouthful, but I'll certainly open it up for any questions you might have at this point.
Your first 2 classes, you had guys come in and contribute right away. Is that, I mean, do you know now, or do you have to see them in the spring? Do you know who can contribute and who are you expecting to contribute?
No, and that's a great question, Chris. And you know, people, again, people always are ranking recruiting classes on National Signing Day. And to me, again, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I don't think it's fair to rank a recruiting class on National Signing Day, you know. So I think your question, to your point, the last 2 recruiting classes, when I stood up here on National Signing Day, very, very confident that they were great classes, as I am today, that this one's a great class. Now, 2 years later, you know, again, 2 years from our 2012 class, a year from our 2013 class, it's been confirmed to us inside our program. Those were great classes. And when you look at from a couple years ago, Trayvon Stewart, from the class 2 years ago, Trayvon Stewart, and I'll just name a few: Adrian McDonald, Tommy Mark, Stephen Taylor, Deontay Greenberry, Ryan Jackson. You know, the list goes on from that class of young men that when we looked at it as a staff the other day, I think there's 10 young men from the 2012 signing class that started for us this past season. Then you look at last year's class with Greg Ward, Tyus Bowser, John O'Corn, you know, Markeith Ambles, I mentioned, Trevor Harris, Tyler McCloskey, William Jackson. So the list goes on from last year's class as well. And so we know those were outstanding classes. You know, as I stand here today, I have the same confidence that I did the last 2 years when I stood here about this class. But again, I've talked about this at length. You know, we don't look at what a young man's ranked in terms of stars. We don't look at who's offered him. You know, as I stand here today, if they fit what we are looking for, and again, we talk to countless people in the school. We talk to opposing coaches about, because they see them on film, they may have friends on that staff that they share things with. You know, once we get a great feel for them, if they fit what we're looking for in all areas, then we're going to recruit them. And again, you know, very confident today, like I've been the last 2 years on the class we've signed this morning.
Tony, can you talk about the haul that you made at Hightower? You got 3 kids, Joel, Khalil, Matthew. How important was it getting those 3 Hurricanes?
Well, I think it was very important, and that was I don't know how many commitments we had at that time, but I know that was early. I think it was early last summer, and we had them and their families over here together, and we extended the scholarship offers at that time. They committed a day or 2 later, and again, I think when you look at bringing in 13 young men from the greater Houston area in one class, and again, when you talk about, I'm going on my 7th year here in the program total as head coach and 4 as an assistant, and so I've been in the city a long time, and as an assistant, I recruited the city of Houston. So, you know, I've seen young men like a Joey Embu, who was recruited by one school, the University of Houston, and he's going to leave here as a 3-year starter, and he's going to be a senior next year. I've seen young men in my 6 years here that wanted to come here, that were recruited by no one, and then were the last week of signing, the last week of recruiting, right before signing day, got just a random offer thrown at them because a program maybe lost someone else, so they just took a shot at this young man. And I know one in particular is going to probably be a first-round draft pick here in a couple months. You know, that was right here in the city and was not recruited by anyone. So that's a big advantage to us, and I think we made a statement this year, if you will. And I know feedback our coaches got, and I got as well, from other college coaches and from high school coaches in the city of Houston, was very complimentary on the job that our program did this year in the city of Houston. And I think the tradition and the type of program that Hightower is, it's a program that's recognized not only within the state of Texas, but as one of the top programs nationally. To get 3 young men from that program, I think was great for our program, and I think it speaks volumes about Hightower's program as well. Well, and that's, you know, when you talk about recruiting in the state of Texas and certainly in greater Houston, you know, I mentioned a few years ago we did a study, and on National Signing Day a couple of years ago, 112 high school seniors signed Division I full scholarships to play football. And so it's very heavily recruited. Sometimes you feel like if you want to ever have a college coaching convention, you could do it right here in Houston sometime in December or January, because every school in the country, and I say that a little bit sarcastically, but the vast majority of programs in the nation fly into Intercontinental or Hobby in December and January, and they're going all over the city of Houston trying to find young men to recruit to their program. So it's certainly challenging. We've got great things to obviously offer, you know, our education, living in the city, the climate, the move to the American Athletic Conference, the new stadium coming up, our new practice fields. So the list goes on. And when you're able to talk to a young man, again, when there's between 100 and 125 young men that are going to sign a Division I scholarship, we feel like we're going to be able to find 10 to 15 who understand the importance of family. When they score a couple touchdowns in our brand new stadium or intercept a couple passes, after the game's over and we win the game, they want to walk out of our brand new stadium and have their family there and not have to have their family at home watching it on television. And again, we feel like we're going to be very successful in doing that.
Tony, a lot of the emphasis, you had quite a few at D-line and D-back and receivers, that just filling up those spots in terms of stockpiling and need positions?
Yes, and that's a good question. What we do two things, Joseph, in recruiting. We look at our current roster by position, and we come up with our ideal number for each position on scholarship. Okay, defensive line, linebackers, defensive backs, and within that we break it down specifically: corner and safety, defensive end, an interior guy on the defensive line, a rush defensive end. Then the same thing on offense: receivers broken down inside and outside, running backs, quarterbacks, offensive linemen. And so we look at our roster, and then based off of those numbers, we make a decision every year. Like we've already made the decision for next year's class, what our numbers are going to be that we'll look for at each position in recruiting. So we go out and we say, okay, we're gonna sign one quarterback, one running back, 5 receivers, and we go down through the list of how many we'll take at each position, based on our numbers on our roster. It determines what we're going to sign in each year's class. So, when you look at like defensive line, for instance, and again, it's no secret, and we've talked about this before, it's been a challenge to recruit defensive linemen to the University of Houston, and I think we did an outstanding job of that this year in athleticism and in size, certainly. And you look at guys that are playing for us. I think Coach Logo did a fantastic job last year and rotated 9 young men along the defensive line, and none of those 9 were seniors, but now this coming year a few of them are going to be seniors. So Jeremiah Farley, a Joey Embu, and Eric Braswell. So now here's kind of the next wave of guys that will have an opportunity to come in, get in the weight room, learn our schemes, learn our techniques. And then as Joey and Jeremiah and Eric Braswell, some of these other guys, Trevor Harris, graduate, we've got the depth that we need numbers-wise to be successful. Mm-hmm. Yes and no. I mean, that's where, again, looking at our roster, Ryan Jackson will be a junior this year. Kenneth Farrow will be a junior this year. Javin Webb redshirted this past year. He'll be a redshirt freshman. And then you got Kalik coming in. So you're going to have. I don't think I'm missing anybody there on scholarship at tailback. We got Tyler McCloskey on scholarship, who's a fullback. We got Luke Stice, who's a fullback as well. So we got some numbers there. Again, to have 4 tailbacks on scholarship in Kalik, Javin, Ryan Jackson, and Kenneth Farrow, that's where we want to be. He's fine. Yeah, Kalik is fine. Well, a couple things, and we've talked about it for a few years now, and have been addressing it in recruiting the last couple of classes, knowing that we were transitioning to, it is what it is. It's a more physical conference. The American Conference is more physical than what Conference USA was, and we saw it this year. There were games we lined up, and some of the teams that had been in the old Big East for a number of years. They had tremendous size across the board. I'm not just talking about defensive line or offensive line. They had bigger receivers. They had bigger defensive backs. So that's something we began addressing a couple of years ago. We continued in this class. We will always take some guys, like I'll reference a Cameron Malveaux from a couple of years ago, was 6'6", 211 pounds when he signed with us, and I just looked at our weight chart the other day, and he's 270 now, and he's still 6'6", in case I know Joseph was wondering. So, we'll take guys like that we know are going to develop, and we can tell whether it's genetically or they got the frame. Again, we feel like that's important moving forward, and we're not going to ever neglect speed. So still guys that can run, but then add some size across the board as well. You know what, and John O'Corn did impact this class, and again, in a number of ways. I think he was a young man a year ago that coming on his visit and coming on unofficial visits, started getting relationships with guys we were recruiting a year ago to that class. You know, we've got a great group of young men in our program, but when recruits would come. And one of the biggest selling points, and I really shouldn't say selling points because it happens natural. When they come on their official visit, and by rule you're allowed to have one of your current football student athletes host a recruited student athlete on his official visit, and we tell the recruits and we tell their families, pick any one of our current football student athletes over the weekend, whether it's at a meal or a function or an event. Pull them aside, ask them about life here at the University of Houston, ask them about our coaching staff, ask them about me, ask them what we're like. And I say that I don't care who you pick. You can pick any one of our student athletes, and we don't prep them. Hey, you're going to get asked this. No, go ask one of our guys how they like it here, how they like being a part of our program. And John hosted on the recruiting weekends. Greg Ward hosted on the recruiting weekends. I mean, we've got great kids that are around these recruits to answer questions. And again, who you see is what they are. I mean, I don't know what I think I know probably what the public perception is of a John O'Corn and a Greg Ward and a Tyus Bowser as people, not as players, as people. And that's who they are. They're great young men, high character, and that impacts. I had a specific father. This comes to mind as you ask that question. I had a specific father on the recruiting weekend, and his son committed to us, and had, after he committed to us, probably got another eight offers, and was just firm. No, we're going to the University of Houston. And the dad pulled me aside at one of the meals on the official visit and said, Coach, I watched a couple of your games this past season on ESPN or one family of ESPN, and just the way your young men carried themselves. And again, he's not talking about how they tackled or how they caught passes. Just how they carried themselves was a big selling point. And he mentioned a couple of young men by name as well. So absolutely, the guys we have currently, and certainly the ones that may be more high profile, like a Greg Ward and a John O'Corn, and certainly impact your recruiting class every year. And the question was, if guys on the outside of the program looked at this list of who we got today, would they be surprised at the quality of players? What we're getting from guys outside the program, whether you're talking about other college coaches or again recruiting sites, is not. I probably won't use the word surprise. Complimentary is the word I'm going to use in terms of not only outstanding athletes, but great young men. Again, character, work ethic, leaders in their schools. We walk into these schools and we will spend as much time as we need to go talk to the librarian, the counselor, the woman at the front desk of the school that takes your driver's license and gives you a name tag, assistant coaches, the people in the cafeteria, other students. Sometimes you walk in, you get the name tag, and she'll have a little, 10th grader there that's got an hour at the front desk, and she'll say, will you take this gentleman to see Coach so-and-so? And when that 10th grader's walking you back there, you're asking him or her, hey, do you know this young man? Yes, I do. Or my older brother is with him on the football team. What's he like? And you're doing that research on what type of kid, what type of person it is. So again, to answer your question, very, very complimentary on the class we've signed this year, the last couple of years. Surprised, you know, I wouldn't say they're surprised. Maybe they are surprised, but they're not saying to us, wow, we're surprised you got these young men.
Tony, can you kind of just talk about the one quarterback you had, Bear Fenimore, and does this now qualify you to go bear hunting? How do you trap a bear?
Security. No, that's good. That's good. I like it. I like it. Bear Fenimore, again, he enrolled in January. He's here already. He's a number of things, and I'll start with this. He's a football junkie. Absolutely loves the game. Very instinctive. He's a leader. You see, he's only been here a short time so far in our program. I'll say less than a month. And guys he's being surrounded by our current guys that are obviously older than him. He should still be finishing out his senior year of high school. Very accurate when he throws the football. Again, you know, I can't say enough about his knowledge when it comes to the game itself. And you know, really excited. He and I met in my office a couple days ago, and we start spring practice in 3.5 weeks. So you know, it's gonna be fun for him. Certainly don't want to have him feel overwhelmed. All of a sudden, he went from playing high school a couple months ago, probably should be getting ready to go to the prom here in a few months, and instead he's going to be taking a snap with Trevor Harris and Tyus Bowser coming off both edges. So you know, it's really excited about him, and again, did a lot of research certainly on Bear. He's a young man, as all these guys are, that really wanted to be here. And you know, I can't say enough great things. I think it was certainly a big benefit based on the position when at first he committed, and then he said, Coach, by the way, I'm going to graduate high school in December. So that was a big benefit for him to be here and be able to go through spring practice with us. A weakness from last year to this year that this class will make stronger. You know, when you look at, and I think we're going to make this probably public in the next few weeks in terms of statistically the guys that are returning from last year to this upcoming season, like our rushing yards, our rushing touchdowns, our catches, our receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, our passing yards, our sacks, our fumble recoveries, interceptions. The numbers are actually staggering in terms of how much production we have returning next season. So I guess to answer your question, what it does provide, and I go back maybe to what I said 15 minutes ago or so, is last year going through the season with 75 student athletes on full scholarship as opposed to the full 85. Now we'll be at 85, so it provides immediate depth in terms of numbers. And you know, it's going to be interesting. In my time here, we've averaged playing 10 true freshmen every year, and it'll be interesting just with all the production returning to see which of these young men come in mentally ready to play and physically ready to play and actually play as true freshmen, and which young men come in redshirt next season.
With a few recruiting classes under your belt now and really getting the type of players in here that you wanted, how much more confident and excited and comfortable are you feeling about the direction and the future of this program? Well, we
feel great about the direction and the future of the program, and I think a number of things. And one, you know, when you look at this class, and this just comes to mind initially, when you look at this class and only taking one junior college transfer, and the rest being young men coming out of high school, that's to me how you develop the program for the long term. So, you know, while we, and I'm going to reference the last answer a little bit, while we look back at this last season and you saw this sophomore scoring a touchdown, or that freshman scoring a touchdown, or that sophomore making an interception, we're going to look up here next fall, and Daniel Spencer's all of a sudden going to be a senior. Markeith Ambles will be a senior. Joey Embu will be a senior. Deontay Greenberry will be a junior. Trayvon Stewart will be a junior. So all of a sudden the guys that we've been talking about the last 2 years, oh, we're young and they're making freshman mistakes. Now they're going to be juniors and seniors. So now you've got this class of 24, 23 of which are true are coming from a high school, so they'll be true freshmen, where if they're ready to play, that's great, we'll play them. If not, it's a great opportunity to develop our program, again, to be consistent in terms of being successful for the long term. So you have an opportunity to get some guys in here. It's amazing, and I say this all the time, we talk about it as a staff all the time, when you look at the young men that come in and play as a true freshman. So this year, again, just to name a few, John O'Corn, Greg Ward, Tyus Bowser, that didn't have a chance to go through your lifting program, your spring practice, your summer, with a year under their belt. It's amazing the improvement they make from year 1 to year 2. And again, the proof of that is a Deontay Greenberry. What he did as a true freshman to what he did this past year. A Trayvon Stewart from what he did as a true freshman to what he did this past year. So now the more guys you're able to redshirt, like we did Stephen Taylor 2 years ago, redshirted him, and this year he started for us at outside linebacker, gained some weight, understood the scheme, was able to go through spring practice. The more guys you could redshirt, I think the better your program is going to be in the long term. And excited to see some young men like a Donald Gage, John Leday, that were true freshmen this past year that redshirted. Everybody, DeMarcus Ayers came in, played as a true freshman. Can't wait to see him start lifting weights and getting on our nutrition program and the gains he will make coming back next year. But also excited again about the true freshmen we were able to redshirt.
You talked a bit about the current players affecting the recruiting class. How the new stadium and the new facilities and practice field and all of that helped?
It helped immensely. And again, Chris, with I used the word unique earlier, and I'm going to use it again. It was unique in that we got the new practice fields, we got the new stadium coming up, we have the new conference this past year, we had the new TV deal that went along with the conference, so we were on some sort of ESPN every week. And it was almost a little bit of the perfect storm, and then certainly winning 8 games and playing in a January bowl game really capped all that off. So it was a great combination of things new around here. And I'll reference this too, and it may seem inconsequential, but the black jerseys we wore on Halloween and then in the morning after Thanksgiving to play SMU, that was a big deal for young men. It was just generated more buzz. And there's a lot to be said, again, when you're talking to young men and their families, and you got the new facilities and the new conference and the exposure on television, all of that combined, again, with the season we had this past year to really help solidify this class.
Tony, since we hadn't seen you, can you kind of address the additions you made with Gordy Shaw, Tony Jeffrey, and Coach Hammersmith?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got 3 new coaches to our program, all on the offensive side of the ball. Again, in no particular order, I'll start off with Coach Gordy Shaw. He is a veteran offensive line coach. Has been in a number of different places, was actually the offensive line coach at the University of Minnesota when I played there. Was there for 15 or 16 years, and he was there with Coach Jim Wacker, and then stayed on with Coach Glenn Mason through his tenure as well. A great person, a great teacher, and someone who's very, very loyal, and really when you look at his body of work. And you look at his resume and you see he's coached draft picks and national award winners. But the thing that stands out more than anything when you talk to guys that have played for him, and again, I've known Coach Shaw a long time, and when you talk about guys that played for him, not necessarily when I was a student athlete and he was an assistant, but guys beyond that, how he cares about the young men. That's the first thing they talk to you about. So just a great addition to our staff. Spent last season down at Texas State. Tony Jeffrey is our new outside receiver coach. Coach Jeffrey is from Houston originally, and he's, again, a unique story that you sometimes see in recruiting. He was a high school quarterback, very talented, went to the University of Texas, recruited him there as a receiver, played wideout for him, was a special teams standout there as well, coached there as a quality control assistant for 3 or 4 years, and then from there went to UTSA, where he coached the entire receivers for the past 4 years. And again, an excellent teacher and is a rising star in this profession. And then the third coach, which is new, is Coach Dan Hammerschmidt. He's our new running back coach, and Coach Hammerschmidt has been around. He's got a great coaching style. He's got a dry sense of humor, which I certainly don't like. But when you get on the field, very, very intense. For most of the time in his career, he's been on the offensive side of the football. Most recently, the last 2 years, he was with the Texans as an offensive assistant. 2 years ago, coaching the running backs. And last season working with the quarterbacks, and again brings really a wealth of knowledge offensively. Great X's and O's guy. Again, a great person, and a tireless recruiter. And again, a guy I've known when we got here in 2008. He was an assistant at Rice, and got to know him at that point. He left after that season and came back to Houston again, like I mentioned 2 years ago, to work with the running backs and quarterbacks, and is a great addition to our staff. Anything else? All right, thank you.